that people don't mind joining. Families, friends all gathering here today. As Katie says, it really is quite a special atmosphere, but a very mixed range of emotions. There is, of course, the sadness at the death of the Queen and the celebration of the new king. Let's speak to Greg Milam. He's at Balmoral for us this afternoon. Greg, perhaps you can give us a sense of what's happening there today.
Yeah, well, I think as Katie was just telling you there, that stream of people wanting to pay their respects is very evident here. A long line that stretches up across the bridge. Actually, the sense of organisation as well here. There is a park and ride system in operation so that people don't have to risk driving on the roads and parking in dangerous places. They're bussed in here to join this queue to lay their flowers and their notes and of course, to read the messages that others have left. It is very organised. It's a sense of real community, actually. People chatting, very reflective, very patient on a beautiful sunny day here at Balmoral. A very ordered ceremony going on, if you like, and it's a mixture of people. There undoubtedly are tourists who would be in the area, as they are at this time of year with the royals in residence, but a lot of local people, and of course the communities around here see the Queen, always saw the Queen as a neighbour, as a member of their community, someone whose privacy they respected, but who they believed belonged to them, if you like. And I think for those people, it is important to come here and pay their respects in a much more intimate way. Because of the part that she played in their lives. And we should remember as well that the Queen's family, a large number of the members of the Queen's family are still here. The Princess Royal, the Duke of York, the Earl and Countess of Wessex as well. Some of the Queen's grandchildren are still here as well. And we anticipate at some point that we may well get a sense of them wanting to thank those members of the public who continue to come here and pay their respects. And of course what everybody is waiting for here is to learn what the plan is next. The Queen's body remains here. There will be a plan for her to be moved to Edinburgh, and people in this community want their chance to express their grief and pay their respects, and they're looking very closely at what the plan will be for that next stage of the ceremony, the moving of the Queen's body, for them to do that. But I think people looking at what's happening in London and the monarchy continuing and that wheel turning and the new king going through those formalities. But here, I think for a lot of people still, it's about the passing of the Queen and the need for them to celebrate her life and pay their respects.
Yeah, very much so, Greg. Thank you. Greg Milam up at Balmoral, but that is the nature of the monarchy and upholding the Constitution, is that there is a new king. Arrangements are being made for the monarchy to continue. But as Greg and Katie Spencer were saying, people want to pay their respects to the Queen. They need a focal point. It's Buckingham Palace, it's Balmoral, but it's in different places around the country. Not everyone can get to Balmoral or here to London. Let's join our correspondent Lisa Dowd, who's in Derby for us today. Hello, Lisa.
Well, yes, we're about 100 miles away from the action, and actually ordinarily I think the monarchy wouldn't be a topic of conversation at this Barber's, but it is inescapable, isn't it? And the Queen had come to Derby so many times before, like other towns and cities up and down the UK, and she actually conferred city status on what was the town of Derby back in the 1970s. And I was chatting to one of the Barbers earlier today who was there as a child to come and greet her to the city. He sat on top of his mum's shoulders, he remembered, and remembered thinking how tiny she was, even though he was tiny as well. But what about a different generation? I've been talking to Eve. Eve, you're just 17 years old, aren't you? You kind of said to me the monarchy, the Queen, didn't really speak to you as a young person, but she has kind of influenced your style. Tell me about that.
Yes, massively. Well, I'm really interested in the 1950s and all 1950s clothes and the glamour. So when I look at the Queen, I always, go to look at her old pictures and also her wartime pictures. But as when she's older, it doesn't mean as much to me. But I do love her history, and I think it's really interesting.
As a younger person, have you kind of been following events? Have you been following what's happening with King Charles? Are you interested?
No, I'm not interested, but I have been following it, but through social media more on that side, because I feel like that's a lot how young people see it all, rather than following it in news and newspapers.
You said to me your dad had been keeping you informed as well. How has he been affected by it?
I I think it's hard for him because of her grandparents having like that connection to it through the wartime generation, and like the royal family when we were at war. So that's that kind of personal connection. But I don't feel it as much through him because I just feel like it's different now. We don't really see the royal family like that as much anymore. Well, some people do, but young people don't as much.
Perhaps that will be something King Charles has to work on. Let's take a little walk through the Barbers and see if we can find someone else to chat to, because the Queen, as I said, has opened many of the public buildings here in the city of Derby over the decades that she reigned, including the council buildings, Pride Park Stadium, many other public buildings as well. Let's find someone to chat to in here, because it's something everyone has been talking about. And hello, sir.
Hello.
Do you mind having a chat with us? I know I spoke to you earlier. Glad to be having a haircut now, aren't you? Have you been following events? How have you been feeling about the Queen's
of course,
passing?
it's hard not to follow it, isn't it? But it's absolutely a momentous occasion. Obviously, myself, my own direct family and the extended family, a massive admirer of the Queen and everything she did. It's absolutely a momentous occasion, and remarkable lady, served the country impeccably, and it's hard to think, she'd never made any mistakes during that reign. So she's, it's going to be a massive loss to the nation and everybody. So.
Have you been following events with King Charles? Did you manage to see his address last night?
So watched the proclamation this morning. So again, obviously that's the first time that's happened in 70 years. So to see the heritage behind that and everything else that has that sort of portrayed across the TV this morning, it's a very, again, momentous occasion. It's something that I encourage my children to watch as well, because this is obviously the first time this has happened in my lifetime, and certainly their lifetime. So it was very nice to see, and it was humbling really to be part of that as part of Great Britain. So
Are you a Derby boy yourself? Have you ever managed to see the Queen here? Because I was speaking to one of the Barbers earlier and he had. I don't know about yourself.
I've never seen the Queen. I'm not a Derby boy. I'm from Lichfield in Staffordshire originally, that way on. But no, the closest I came to meeting a royal was Princess Diana when she came to our school in Swadlincote many years ago. But no, never met the Queen. But I'm sure she touched the lives of many people. So.
Where were you when you found out about her death? Did it come as a shock, as it has to so many, actually?
I think I was at work when the news sort of came out that she was obviously very poorly, and obviously hearing about William and Harry, flying up to Balmoral and getting over to see her as soon as they could, but obviously didn't make it in time. So I was at work as these sort of events unfolded, and then I was actually at my son's football training when the news broke. And obviously it's a sign of the times now, isn't it, in social media and everything else, that news spreads very fast. But yes, it came as a shock, of course, but I think a few of us had known that she'd been, not well for a while. So yes, it certainly still came as a very much of a shock.
Your little boy is just behind Harvey.
Yeah.
Harvey, I see you on your screen. Does he know much about the Queen?
He knows a little bit. I mean, you can try and get a question out of him.
Let's have a quick chat to Harvey. Harvey, do you mind me having a little chat with you? Put your screen down. Thank you, darling. What do you know about the Queen?
Did you admire the Queen? Do you like her?
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you know who the new king is now?
Yeah.
Who's that?
Who is the new king?
Prince Charles.
Amazing.
Well done. Now, King Charles. And did you hear much about the Queen's death when you were at school yesterday? Oh, well, I'm sure
Do you know
you.
where she lived?
Buckingham Palace.
Oh, well done, Harvey. Well done. Thank you for joining us on Sky News. Thank you. So, just like any other city in town, actually, if people want to leave flowers and messages and sign a book of condolence, people can do that at the cathedral just up the road. And what they're going to do with the flowers after the Queen's funeral is compost them and then use that compost to plant a tree in her memory to commemorate her passing here in the city.
Lisa, thank you. Lisa Dowd there in Derby. We're joining me now, Ingrid Stewart, the editor-in-chief of Majesty magazine. Ingrid, good to see you. Thank you for coming down to see us.
Thank you for asking me.
Well, fighting your way through the crowds because, you know, the streams of people, it doesn't seem to stop. There's no end in sight to the queue of people. And
no.
this will be like this for the next few days.
And there's a lot of children. Well, it's Saturday today, and there are a lot of people obviously want their children to witness this historic moment of being able to come here and bring flowers and pay your respects. It's actually a very gentle, nice crowd.
Yeah, it's very gentle. It's a very lovely atmosphere. Everybody being very patient and polite to each other. But there's a real mixture of emotions here. There were cheers as they saw the new king going to Buckingham Palace around half an hour or so ago. But of course, it's still a very, very sad occasion. We have lost the Queen.
It is a very sad occasion, and I think that's why there's so much mixed emotion. And people wanting to do something. I think in situations like this, like when Diana died 25 years ago, people didn't quite know what to do, and they wanted to do something, so the flower stream started. Well, I think they've moved the flowers from in front of the palace now, haven't they, and put them somewhere else, so they're not sort of jamming up the roadway. But, you know, people still want to do it. They still want to say, well, I was there. I think that's really, you want to be there.
Yeah, this is a momentous moment in history. We've been watching it unfold on Sky News here today, the proclamation of the new king. Just talk to us about the significance of this, Ingrid, because we will never see this again in our lifetime.
Well, I certainly won't see this again in my lifetime. You might. No, it's hugely significant. It's happened so quickly. The Queen is dead, long live the King, that I think, you know, people are finding it a little hard to get their heads around it, and that's why they are so emotional. And watching the proclamation this morning was very emotional, and it was a piece of history again, which, as you said, probably very few people will ever witness again.
Can you talk to me about your dealings with the Queen? You've been covering the royals now for decades, and everybody has their own special moment with her, or a story that we find something new out about the Queen, you know, every hour here at the moment, with people just coming up with little gems of personal, private moments.
This is true, actually, and then people are now prepared to tell these wonderfully personal moments. I mean, obviously, none of the royal family like journalists. I think everyone has to accept that. However nice you are obtrusive and you're in the way. So the one time I met the Queen at a private event, well, fairly private, she thought I was married to the person standing next to me, who just happened to be Nicholas Soames. Maybe she didn't think I was married to him, but she thought I was something to do with him, so I was all right.
This is Sir Nicholas Soames, Winston Churchill's grandson.
Yes, Sir Nicholas Soames, Lord Soames. Anyhow, he was absolutely charming, and I was talking to him. He was towering over me, and the Queen just appeared next to us.
And married you off.
And she then started telling, she'd just been opening the Houses of Parliament. And it was a state opening, it had been that morning, and she was telling me, a story about something that had happened there, and it was totally in riddles, because everyone had a nickname. So, of course, you forget that this family, they call each other by nicknames, and other people. And she was saying, oh, Bobbity did something, and Bobbity slipped or something, and I thought, who on earth is Bobbity? And then it took me about 3 days to realise...
To decode it.
To decode it. And, of course, the Marquess of Salisbury was always, historically, Bobby, Robert, Bobbity. And so, historically, they've always been called that. So I decoded it eventually.
What about the Prince of Wales, as he was, now King Charles III? In comparison to his mother, he has had a lifetime of training for this role. The Queen, of course, as a result of an abdication, became an heir to the throne, and then very suddenly after the death of her father became the Queen in her 20s. King Charles III, by contrast, a lifetime to prepare for this.
I think he's had a lifetime to prepare, but still isn't prepared emotionally. Mentally, physically, but not emotionally. But you see, Prince Charles is very amusing and lovely to be around as well. And Prince Charles likes women. He's one of those gentle people that like women and is very responsive to listening to women. And I've met him on many occasions, and he's always made me laugh. And I suppose he's got that sense of humour that his mother had. which we probably saw more of in her later life than we did in her earlier years. And Prince Charles is very funny and very quick-witted and very self-deprecating.
Will we see that emotion and that passion remain? Because when we think of the emotion, we think of the King making that speech last night to the nation. And of course, towards the end of that speech, as he spoke about his mother, you could see the emotion. It was all over his face, it was in his eyes. But we also talk about emotion in terms of his charity work, in terms of the causes. He is passionate about that. How much of all of that will he be able to take into this new role? Because the Queen very much kept it behind closed doors.
Well, Charles made it, sorry, I beg your pardon, His Majesty made it very clear during that speech last night that he was going to forsake the things that he'd worked, he didn't use those words, but he was going to forsake the things that he'd worked so hard for. All his charitable causes would go by the board. They would have to be taken up by William. And he'd said that once before. He said, I don't think that I'm so stupid that I'm going to try and carry on doing this when I'm king. He couldn't possibly. He wouldn't have time. And also, he knows perfectly well he can no longer be controversial in his views. I mean, we know, for instance, that the Queen was very, very interested in green issues and climate change, but she very, very rarely spoke about it. And Charles, you know, most people that have ever heard of King Charles know that he was passionate and is passionate about the future of our planet, and he will continue to be so, but he won't talk about it.
Ingrid, we're just hearing, we were talking about this earlier on the flowers outside Buckingham Palace. So many people, again, they're still filing past us, behind us, and they will be for the rest of the week, I would imagine. But we are understanding, we are hearing that the flowers from Buckingham Palace, the gates of Buckingham Palace, are being cleared and moved into Green Park, which is just next to the palace here in central London. And it's going to be displayed, the flowers are going to be displayed in the park for the public to head there to view the messages, to look at the flowers and to lay flowers of their own if they should so wish. Because, of course, Ingrid, as you mentioned, it's quite a narrow walkway there with the barriers up, obviously, for coming and going cars. It would block up the walkway, so they're being moved because it's just going to grow. It's going to be an absolute sea of flowers over the coming days.
Well, the police were, or attendants in the park, were actually, as I struggled through, was saying, please don't go round to Buckingham Palace, we're closing that off. If you want to leave flowers, you're going to have to go round Piccadilly. So whether or not they'll leave them down the railings of Piccadilly, I don't know, I didn't quite know, but they're not going to stop people doing it. But they're going to just push them to different areas.
Yeah, Green Park is, on the other side of Green Park is Piccadilly, so maybe it's from the entrance there coming through the park. But if you are making your way to London, if you're watching Sky News, and I remember the death of Princess Diana, so many people watched the scenes unfold on TV and felt like they had to be there.
Absolutely.
So they watched the television at the time. I remember it as a young girl going to Kensington Palace with my mum and dad. And that is what is going to be happening over the coming days. So if you are watching the TV, it is Green Park that is the focus of where people will be going. Buckingham Palace is obviously going to be very busy. A lot of pomp and ceremony going to be happening here over the next few days. Ingrid, just while we have you, can we talk about Prince William, now the Prince of Wales? As with the proclamation of a new king, people's titles change. We have a new Queen Consort, and we now have a new Prince and Princess of Wales.
Yes, I was actually quite surprised that, you know, suddenly we had the Duke of Cornwall and then we had the Prince of Wales. So the King decided, you know, you don't have to have a great big ceremony to become Prince of Wales. That was just a historical tradition. So he, as things happen now, he did it on television and said that his son would now become the Prince of Wales and that Catherine would become the Princess of Wales. And I think there is no one more suitable than Catherine to take that very honoured title because, you know, because of Diana. Everyone associates it with her. But she has also said that she would, you know, use it to do all the good she can and perhaps put her own stamp on it, which of course is very, very wise. She can't recreate herself as Diana and wouldn't want to.
Yeah, there is a weight of recent history on that title that she takes on now. And just in terms of Prince William is the new heir, and that is his role now. Will his life change much in terms of, you know, again, the whole royal family know the order of events, but how will his life change? Will, like the new king, his roles with charities change, his duties?
I think William's life will change a great deal. Not immediately, but he's going to have so many more responsibilities. And he's going to be supporting his father and his stepmother in their roles. And not that they, not necessarily beside them, but he will be supportive and doing things on behalf of the monarchy, perhaps not so much on behalf of himself and his favourite causes. He will be doing things on behalf of the monarchy, and I think he's ready and very, very able to do that.
Ingrid, it's been a pleasure to talk to you this afternoon. Ingrid Seward, Editor-in-Chief of Majesty Magazine. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's going to be a momentous few days ahead. We are witnessing history unfold here at Buckingham Palace and across the UK and Commonwealth. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll see you again soon. Thank you. Well, the House of Commons is due to start sitting again within the next few minutes. MPs taking an oath of allegiance to the new king, before then continuing with their tributes to the Queen. Our chief political correspondent, John Craig, is in Westminster following events for us. John?
1 o'clock they sit again after a marathon session yesterday, which went on until nearly 11 o'clock. Speaker Sir Lindsay Hall announced just before they rose, just before 11 p.m, 182 MPs paid tribute to the late Queen during yesterday's proceedings. What's going to happen today is 1 o'clock. Prayers, 3 or 4 minutes as usual. The Speaker will then say a few words, probably talk about arrangements for the next few days. Then we will have senior politicians, led by the Prime Minister Liz Truss, swearing the oath to the new king. Now, normally MPs swear an oath to the monarch after a general election at the beginning of a new parliament. They sign the book, having just won their seats. I'm not sure they'll be signing the book because, of course, we're midway through a parliament, but they will all queue up by the table in front of the Speaker's chair, swear the oath to the new king. Not all politicians, we're probably just going to get the senior ones, senior ministers, senior opposition figures. Then we're back to tributes, and then at the end of the day there's going to be what's called a humble address to Her Majesty, basically a statement from Parliament that they've spent the last 2 days debating, and basically it'll be wishing the new monarch well and pledging their loyalty, many of them having signed the oath. I should say, Sarah Jane, this is only the 6th time the House of Commons, and indeed the Lords are sitting at 1 o'clock too, has sat on a Saturday since 1939. They normally sit on really big occasions. 1939, the start of the Second World War. 1949, they sat the end of July on a Saturday just for adjournment debates. Presumably didn't want to go into August. Then 1956, Suez Crisis. 1982, the Falklands War. They sat on Easter Saturday in April 1982, and then much more recently, 2019, it was in October, during the Brexit deadlock. So, because the Queen Elizabeth was on the throne for 70 years, of course, we haven't had an occasion like this where MPs are paying tributes to the late monarch and then swearing their allegiance to the new one for a very, very long time. So it's quite new for everyone. During the tributes yesterday, many MPs were saying, of course, that they weren't alive when Queen Elizabeth acceded to the throne. One or two mentioned that they were. Margaret Beckett, the former Labour minister, was one. I think we will see today not just junior MPs, but also some of the more senior ones who didn't get a chance to pay tribute yesterday. So no doubt some more warm anecdotes as well as some loyal tributes, and the beginning of the swearing in process, which the Speaker may announce will continue into next week.
John Craig, thank you. The senior MP's oath of allegiance to the King is coming up here on Sky News at 1 o'clock. Well, King Charles has returned to Buckingham Palace following that meeting of the Accession Council at St James's Palace. Loud cheers from the crowds gathered here outside the palace as the Sovereign's vehicle flying the Royal Standard drove through the gates. The new King has a number of audiences at the palace this afternoon, including with the Dean of Westminster. They will be discussing funeral plans for the Queen. afternoon to you from Buckingham Palace, with Charles III now officially proclaimed king. The new monarch was confirmed at an ancient ceremony, the Accession Council, which was televised for the very first time.
In carrying out the heavy task that has been laid upon me, and to which I now dedicate what remains to me of my life, I pray for the guidance and help of Almighty God.
The new head of the Church of England also signed an oath guaranteeing security for the Church of Scotland. Watching on were some of the most senior figures in the country, political and royal. And then, the moment King Charles III was publicly proclaimed the new monarch for the first time.
Prince Charles Philip Arthur George is now, by the death of our late sovereign of happy memory, become our only lawful and rightful liege lord, Charles III.
And at the moment the proclamation was made, gun salutes rang out across the United Kingdom in honour of the new monarch. Proclamations too in the City of London, as well as in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. And cheers for the new monarch as he returned to Buckingham Palace ahead of meetings with the government, the opposition and church leaders. Good afternoon from Buckingham Palace. Charles III has been officially proclaimed the king. He was formally recognised at a special ceremony attended by senior politicians and royals this morning before a second proclamation in the City of London at midday. The King has declared the day of Queen Elizabeth's funeral a bank holiday, though the date is still to be announced. King Charles III was formally announced monarch at the Accession Council, attended by around 200 Privy Councillors. Also present, the Prime Minister, Liz Truss, the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, the new Prince of Wales, and Camilla, the Queen Consort. Well, in the next few minutes,